Hello everyone, greetings from PayTabs team and welcome to Managing Merchants Dashboard tutorial series. In this series, we are going to take you on a journey to learn and discover the power of our merchant dashboard. Throughout the series, we will walk you through each of the menus and options found on PayTabs merchant dashboard and how you can easily manage it. So, let's get started. In this video, we are going to learn more about the Invoices panel inside PayTabs Merchant Dashboard, and we are going to take a general idea about the invoices and how we can manage our invoices inside PayTabs Merchant Dashboard. So, let's get started. The first thing you should know is that once you log into your PayTabs Merchant Dashboard, from the left menu you can find the Invoices panel by navigating to the word Invoices and clicking on it. Here, you will have access to the Invoices panel inside your merchant dashboard. But before we get into the details of the Invoices panel and how we can manage our invoices through our dashboard, let's first have an idea about what is PayTabs Invoices. So, before we say that, we should know that we have a fully dedicated solution article that can guide you through PayTabs Invoices and the different types of invoices, which is named What is PayTabs Invoices, and you can find it inside PayTabs support portal. Now, as clarified here inside What is PayTabs Invoices solution article, an invoice is a document that you send to your client after a purchase of goods or services from you, both as a means of recording the sale and requesting payment from them. So an invoice is simply a document that have the details of a payment. You send this document to your customer or one of your customer, and this document will contain the whole details of the payment. So now once the document reached the customer will have a mean of the sale and will be able to buy this document or buy the payment inside this document through this invoice. So he will have like a pay now button inside the invoice, and once he decides to pay this invoice and fulfill it, he will click on it and he will be redirected to the payment page which contains the amount of this invoice, and he will be requested to pay it. So this is simply the PayTabs Invoices, and if you want to learn more about the concept itself of PayTabs Invoices, we highly recommend you to check this solution article. Now, let's get back to the Invoicing on-site merchant dashboard, and one more thing we need to know before starting clarifying all these parts here is that how we can initiate and manage invoices through PayTabs. So if the merchant dashboard is the only way to initiate PayTabs invoices, or are there any other ways? Actually, PayTabs invoices can be initiated in different ways like the merchant dashboard, and it's also available to be initiated and managed through our APIs. So we have a fully dedicated solution article here that is called the Invoices APIs Integration Manual, which can guide you through how you can integrate through our invoices and through our APIs. And also we have a fully dedicated solution article over here that can guide you through the different way to create and manage invoices by the name What are the different way to create invoices inside PayTabs support portal. So now that we have learned there are different ways to create and manage invoices, what we are looking for in this video is to learn the invoices, or to learn how we can manage our invoices inside our merchant dashboard. So once we navigate to the invoices panel over here, we can see this view over here. We will have two windows or two options over here. One that start with the word invoices and have these four buttons and have like some threshing filter, and the next window will contain your invoices. So we will go through both of these windows to learn how we can manage our invoices through them. Starting from the invoices window at the top of here, we can see that this invoice window have like four buttons over here that can be the starting points for us. These four buttons are the plus for adding a new invoice, the export to export a list of invoices as a CSV, and the export as an XLS or as an Excel file, and finally the bulk invoices. Let's go through each of these buttons and learn more about them in each one. So starting with the first one, which is the very basic thing, is how we can create a new invoice inside PayTabs Merchant Dashboard. Creating a new invoice inside PayTabs Merchant Dashboard can easily done through this Add Invoice button. Once we click on it, we will be redirected to the Add Invoice screen, and the Add Invoice screen is looking or should look like this. So this is the way you are going to add an invoice through your merchant dashboard, or this is the way you are going to create a new invoice through your merchant dashboard. So we are going to take out, or we are going to take a journey through all of these fields and learn what each one of them do and how it affects our invoices. So the basic things are the starting ones, which is, for example, the currency. And here we can see that we will have a list of the available currencies inside our profile. So for example, inside this profile, I only have the Saudi Riyal currency, or SAR currency. So inside the currency list, I will see my configured currency. Now, of course, if you want to enable more currency inside your PayTabs profile, you should contact your account manager or PayTabs customer care. Now, the next option will be the type, and here we are talking about the transaction type, and now we can see that the only transaction type inside PayTabs Merchant Dashboard is the sale transaction type. Now, if you want to learn more about the transaction types and the differences between them, we have a dedicated solution article here with the name, let's change my language, what is tran type? So if we navigate to this solution article over here, we can see that you can learn inside this solution article what is transaction type, the differences, and the available options or the available transaction types inside PayTabs. But for now, what we want to know is that when we are initiating payment, or we are initiating actually invoices through Merchant Dashboard, the only available transaction type to initiate is the sale transaction type. However, you should know that there are other options or other transaction types supported when you are initiating invoicing through APIs, like the auth transaction type. So now that we have learned about the transaction type, the next thing will be the invoice type. The invoice type represents the type of the invoice that will be created, and these have actually only two values. The first one is the standard invoice, and the second one is the template invoice. So the standard invoice is simply a very standard invoice that is dedicated to only one customer. So as you can see here, once we click on the standard invoice, and we can see a pop-up window over here represent the customer details, meaning that this invoice will be dedicated to only one customer, and once this invoice is paid, it will be done. Its status will be paid, and this invoice journey will end. But the next option, or the next invoice type, which is template, here we are creating like a theme for our invoice. So once you create this invoice, you will be able to use it with multiple customers. And every time a customer accesses this invoice, or every time you send this invoice to a new customer, he will be created, or PayTabs will be creating a new invoice with him with the same details provided in the first template invoice. Now we are going to test both of these invoice type, but we are going to do that after we sum up all the details inside the add invoice view. So as you can see here, again, we clarified that we have two invoices type. The standard is dedicated for only one customer, and once it's paid, its journey is done. There are no more action will be done upon it. But for the invoices type of template, it can be dedicated to multiple customers, and as you can see here, the standard will have the customer details window as it's dedicated to only one customer, but the template will not contain the customer details window. Now the second option will be the invoices language, and you can choose two languages from the supported language inside our invoices, which is the Arabic language and the English language. This is a very basic option. The next thing will be the allow edit invoice. This allow edit invoice option is actually doing what it's coming from its name. So there are two options here. Once we allow the edit to this invoice, once we create the invoice, any user or the user who have access to edit the invoices will be able to edit this invoice after it's created. However, if we disable this option, the users or any user who have access to edit invoices will not be able to edit this invoice, as this invoice will be closed at its current state and it will be used at this way. So this is just a simple way to disable or enable the editing on your invoice. Now, the second thing will be the theme, and here you can see you will choose a theme, and the theme are some kind of a UI theme that you configure inside the developer section, and you will learn more about the themes inside the developer panel menu video. But for now, what we want to know is that we have themes configured inside our profile, and this option allows you to choose one of these themes. Going through from these options, we will have the details of the invoice itself, like the invoice title, the invoice description, the customer ID or the customer reference, the invoice reference itself. It's just some random details for the invoice to be created or to be created with. Now, as you can see here, the title, the description, the customer ID, the invoice reference are just some metadata that you create for your invoice, and you will have its own detail through your own details. But after that, we will have two options, which is very efficient and very important for creating an invoice. These two options are the activation date and the expiration date. And from its name, the activation date represents the date that will be activated or this invoice will be activated in. Meaning that if we set, for example, the activation date like 2 days from now, the customer will not be able to buy or fulfill this invoice until the activation date comes. The same goes for the expiration date, but here what was going to happen is once the expiration date is due, the customer or the invoice will be expired and the customer will not be able or not be further able to pay it. So this is simply the idea about the activation date and the expiration date. So be very careful when you are creating an act or when you are fulfilling the activation date and the expiration date, and this is going to be the dates that the invoice will be available to be paid in it. Meaning that it will be available to be paid starting from the activation date, ending with the expiration date. However, if you left these two fields empty, you will not, or the invoice will not have a certain date and it will be available to be paid forever. Now, the final option we are going to see here is the payment method filter. The payment method filter, from its name, filter the payment methods that you want to be displayed inside the payment page. And further of this video, we are going to see and learn the difference between the payment page and the invoice page, as these are two different screens. But for now, what we want to see here is that the default value for any payment page initiated will be all the payment method as clarified here in the placeholder. However, if you want to specify a specific payment method to be displayed, for example here, you want to say that this is only contain Apple Pay. You are going to write the payment method, add it here, and if you want to say multiple payment method, you can correspond it or concatenate it by comma like this, and I will say Apple Pay, and after Apple Pay, for example, I'm going to say cards or Meta, for example. Just going to turn off my caps lock, and as you can see here, I have filtered the payment method to be only Apple Pay and Meta, and no other payment methods will be displayed. Now, if you want to learn more about the exact format about this payment method filter, you will see like an information button over here, and as you can see here, you will have an example of how you can concatenate and add all the payment methods. You can choose the all payment method. You can forfeit, for an example. For example, if you want all the payment method and only one payment method not to be existed, you can concatenate it by saying the word or fulfilling the word all, and the one that you want to not to be displayed, you will add like a negative dash before it. This is just an idea about how you can filter the payment method inside the payment page of this invoice. Now, once we fulfill all of these options, now I'm going to test out an invoice with you. So my currency will be the Saudi Riyal, the SAR. I'm going to fulfill a standard invoice. Actually, I'm going to allow the edit for it, and the language will be English. I'm going to choose the default theme, and after that I'm going to choose like a test title, and I'm going to choose a test description and the customer ID. And by the way, this customer ID or this field over here is related to one of or a feature that can be configured inside our profile called the custom invoice label. We will go through it in a minute, but for now we just want to create an invoice or create our first invoice. So I'm going to fulfill the customer ID here. I'm going to say, for example, cast_1, and as you can see, any field that has the asterisk screen or the asterisk button, this means that this field is mandatory to be fulfilled. Any other one is not mandatory. I'm going to fulfill the invoice reference to be inv_1, for example. I'm not going to fulfill any activation or any expiration date, and I'm going to leave the payment method folder empty to have all the payment method. Now we are going to the next part of creating the invoice, which is your products. Now, your products can be added manually from here by just fulfilling a list of products detail, and each detail will contain an SKU, a description, a unit price, a quantity, a discount, and a tax, and a total amount for a certain product. So for example, here I'm going to create an product, let's say SKU1. I'm going to give it any description, like this is description. I'm going to give it a unit price of 10. I'm going to give it a quantity of 2. And now I'm going to save my product, and as you can see here, I have created a product. I have simply created all of its details. If I want to add another product, I will be able to add it simply like that. SKU2 description. This is the second description, for example. I'm going to add here to be 20. Going to leave the quantity as 1, and as you can see over here, the total amount and the tax total will be clarified over here. Of course, if you want to add any discount, any tax, the total amount will be clarified in this. So for example, I'm going to add a discount of, I'm going to head to my discount over here. I'm going to add a discount of, let's say, 5, and I'm going to add a tax of 2. And as you can see, once I save, there will be the discount will be applied for each product, and the tax will be applied for each product. And now you can see that the final amount has been totaled over here, the tax amount, the total amount with tax, the tax total. And now we can fulfill the customer details. I'm just going to fill out any random details, and once you fill out these sample details, you will see that we have the options to cancel the invoice, save the invoice, save and send the invoice via email, save and send the invoice via SMS. I'm just going to save the invoice, as we are going to learn more about how we can send the invoice further in this video. Now, once I click on save the invoice, let's see here. Yes, I messed out the phone number. It's not correctly IBIS. Yes, now it's correct. I'm going to save it. Make sure, yes, now it has been added correctly. Once it has been added, we will be able to see it over here inside the invoices screen. So as you can see, I have here the invoice ID, I have the invoice description, the invoice reference added, the currency of the invoice, the total amount, the status. As you can see, it's still pending, and if for example it's paid, the status will be changed to paid. And if, for example, if it's you have added an expiration date, the expiration date has passed, so this means it will be overdue. And here, if this is created through dashboard, you will see who created this invoice, one of the users. So now I'm going to click on the ID over here. And once I click on the ID, you will see the details of the invoice. And if you remember, we have enabled the edit option over here, and this means we can edit it from this button. But first, let's get an idea about all of these buttons over here. Starting from the left, the first one will be copying the invoice link, which is this link. Now, a very important thing here is to learn the difference between the invoice link and the payment page. Now, I'm going to close out all of these tabs, and I'm going to copy the invoice link like that so we can have an idea about how the invoice will look for our customer. This is the link, or this is the invoice page that our customer will see. Now, as you can see here, this link contains this endpoint or this URL. It starts with our endpoint URL, then /payment /request /invoice, and then the session number. Now, once we have a /invoice over here, this means it is an invoice page, not a payment page. Now, as you can see here, I have opened a new one. It's the same invoice, the same URL. Inside the invoice page over here, we will see that we have like the invoice details, the customer details, the issuing date, all the details here. Now, once the customer click on pay now, this means the customer is now ready to pay this invoice. So now he will be redirected to the payment page. The payment page, as you can see, have a different URL. It's a very simple URL here. It will be /payment /page /decision and start. Now here we can see the difference between this endpoint is very critical, as the payment page will be expired after only 20 minutes, but the invoice payment or the invoice page have the expiration that you clarified inside the editing or inside creating the invoice, or if you didn't even fulfill the expiration date, this invoice page will be available forever. But the PayTabs payment page is a one session payment, meaning it will be expired once it's open. It will be expired after 20 minutes. Now here we will have a very normal payment page. We can view the invoice from here. This is the optional thing that you can see inside the payment page that was created for invoice. And once we fulfill the payment over here, I'm going to fulfill my payment. I'm going to click on pay now. I'm going to confirm the payment. All is going good. My transaction is successful. Now I'm going to get back to my invoice over here screen. I'm going to reload it so that we can see that the status of this invoice has been changed to paid, and there is a new button over here which will reflect the payment transaction. Now this is very important to know the difference between the invoice ID and the payment transaction. The invoice represent, or this ID represents the ID of the invoice, which is the invoice page we just showed, the first one. As for this, it is the payment transaction that the customer or this customer in critical has paid it, and we will see here all the transaction details, and we can see the invoice ID for this transaction over here. Now we want to get back to our invoice screen over here to go through the remaining of these buttons. But before we learn more about the rest of these buttons, what I want to do actually is I want to create another invoice that is with the type of standard over here to see the difference between them. But before we do that, I want to learn, or I want to give you an idea about some options that you can do that will make the creating of the invoice more easily. These options, like creating a predefined products or creating a predefined customers. This option can be done easily through your profile menu over here. By navigating to the profile menu, you will see here that we have two fields over here, or three fields related to the invoice. The first one, which is the predefined invoice products. Here, once we click it like that and we enable this option, you will see here that you can define a certain products. These products will be defined inside your PayTabs profile, and you will be able to add it while creating any invoice. So for example, over here I'm going to create this test SKU, for example. I'm going to test description, This will be price. I'm going to add a price of 10. I'm going to add the currency. I'm going to leave the taxes as empty. I'm going to leave the option to edit the VAT and cost. But if you want to disable them, no one will be able to edit the VAT and cost of this product. And I'm going to add this product over here. Of course, you can add many product as you want, but I'm going to do the same to create a predefined. First, I'm going to save it. They want VAT. I'm going to leave it as 0. I'm going to save it and just delete this one and just save. Now the product was created successfully. Now we can navigate to the next option, which is the predefined customer, and you can see what we are going to do here. Simply we are going to add customers so you can assign it manually or automatically to your new invoice. Now I'm going to add a sample customer simply over here. I'm going to save. Just let's make these details accurate like that. Now my customer has been saved successfully. You have option to delete it, and you have the details. You will be able to add the new customers from here. Now we are going to get back to the invoice and see how this affects creating a new invoice. Simply here you can see that when creating any new invoice, for example, if we are creating a standard invoice, and over here you can see you will have an option to select a customer from the predefined customer. The same goes for the products. You will have an option over here to add from the SKU to add the predefined products. Over here, as you can see, the product will be displayed here. Once you click it, you will have all the product details. You can edit it if you want to edit, but this will allow you to make a predefined product inside your merchant dashboard to sell it or to add it to your invoice easily. Now I'm going to save this predefined product along with the predefined customer details. Another thing that you can do through your profile actually is the predefined or the invoice label. The custom invoice labels are just some label or a user-defined options, and the user-defined option can be clarified inside our APIs, but these labels have a default value, and here we are giving you the option to change this value. For example, changing the customer reference to be customer ID and making it like mandatory or not. And once you edit this option, it will be displayed inside the invoice page as the option you clarified here. And of course, for the user defined, which is used through our APIs, you will give here an option name or a user defined name, and once you send it through the API, it will be displayed inside the invoice page. This is just an idea about what's happening. So I'm going to edit this customer ID, for example, to be customer number so that you can see the option. And I'm going to, let's just make number correctly. And I'm going to leave it as optional. I don't want it to be mandatory. I'm going to click on update. And as you can see here, I'm going to get back to my invoice. I'm going to add a new invoice. And as you can see here, it was changed to customer number. This label was changed to customer number, and now it's not mandatory. The asterisk is not there anymore. Now let's test out the next type. Then the optional feature that we can configure to be easy to create a new invoice. Let's test a new invoice with the type standard. I'm going to allow the edit. I'm going to give it like title 2. I'm going to give it description 2, just any random detail to test the invoice with it. I'm going to give the customer number 111. Invoice reference would be C1, for example, or D1. I'm going to leave the activation and expiration date and the payment method filter. I'm going to add one of my predefined products over here. As you can see, since we chose the template, it will not actually contain any customer details, as this is not dedicated for only one customer. Now I'm just going to make sure I chose my product and I showed the quantity correctly. I'm going to save. Now it's been added. I'm going to save this invoice, and let's see how this invoice is looking inside our merchant dashboard. And in the same way, let's take an idea about how these buttons work. Now, first, you can see the first different thing here is that the type is not anymore standard. The type now is template. And template means this will be able to be used multiple times. Meaning if I get over here, I copy the invoice, I get over here and paste the new invoice so that we can see it over here. This is actually, I was redirected to the invoice. No, I want to be redirected to the invoice page. I have really loaded the old payment page. Now we have been redirected to the new invoice, and as you can see here, once we click on view invoice, you will have this invoice details. And once the customer pay, or once your customer pay this invoice, of course this time he will be required to fill his card details, his billing details information, as it was not provided inside the predefined invoice. And once he click on pay now, let's see how this will affect the invoice tab. We are going to reload now. You will see that the template is still there. The template that we have created is still there, and a new invoice was created. This is the one that we did not pay, and this is the one that we did pay the second time. As you can see here, its status is paid, and you will be able to still use the old invoice as many times as you want if you are not providing an expiration date. Now, since we learned the difference between the template and the standard, now we want to learn more about these options over here. These options are very easy and give you a powerful ways to use and manage your invoice. The first one, which is the copy link, which is simply if you want to copy the invoice link and send it manually to any one of your customer or add it in any place. And the next option will be sending your invoice, and as you can see here, we have 3 ways to send your invoice. The first through WhatsApp, and here simply you're going to provide your customer number and just click on next, and it will be sent to your customer, or via SMS or via email, and each of them you will be providing an email or a mobile number. Now, the next thing will be downloading a QR. Here you will be downloading a QR code that looks like this. This will allow your customer to just scan the QR code and they will be redirected to the invoice payment page. Now, there is an option here that is also supported through your merchant dashboard to pay the invoice directly from here. And by clicking here, if we click on pay now, it will be redirecting you to the invoice payment page. You will see here the invoice detail and you will be able to view the invoice from here. Now, another option here is to edit, and this option will only exist if you have allowed the edit while creating the invoice. If we click on it over here, you will see that you'll be able to edit the invoice details. I don't want to edit it. I'm just going to continue over here with the rest of the button. After the edit, we will have the option to cancel this invoice, and once you cancel it, no other customer will be able to use it furthermore. Finally, if you want to duplicate this invoice, create an invoice with the same details, this option gives you this power. So once we click on it like that, you will see that a new invoice will be created of the same type of this invoice. Now, the next option we want to look, which is the download via PDF. This download via PDF has a very powerful option that if you downloaded the invoice while it's not paid yet, here you will have a link so that the customer can buy the invoice through this button. However, if you downloaded the invoice when it's paid, like for example, let's view a paid invoice over here like this one, and we are going to download it as a PDF like that. You will see here it will be shown as the paid detail, and it will have the paid stamp over here, and it will have all the details that you have provided along with your customer details, and it will be a very good template for you to use inside your system. Now, finally, we want to see here after the download PDF, let's get to our invoice template over here. To download PDF, finally will be to view your invoice without editing. This is just a simple option to view the invoice options you have created, and also you'll be able to edit it from here. Now, then we have learned about the way of managing invoices, and of course, if you are looking to learn more about the invoices and how you can manage it, you can revert to the solution article mentioned at the first of this video, what is PayTabs Invoices, and inside it you have a fully dedicated solution article called how to manage your PayTabs Invoices via merchant dashboard. Now, the next thing we want to learn about are the three buttons. Of course, for the search view over here, we have a search option if you want to search like for a certain invoice ID and you want to dedicate a certain date like from and to, and here if you want to search like a certain status. These are just some simple status that you can search for invoices with it if you have multiple invoices and you are looking to search with it. But finally, over here will be the exporting. If you want to export your invoices, we can export it via CSV or Excel. I'm going to choose on export Excel so that or CSV so that I can show it to you how it looks. You will see here it contains all the details. Once I open it like that, we take a look about, you will have here all the invoice details or your invoices details, and of course you can search for certain invoice and export the searched invoice only through these two ways. The final option that we want to mention is the bulk invoices. And the bulk invoices is a very powerful feature that allow you to upload or create many invoices or a bulk of invoices in one time using an Excel or a CSV sheet. Actually, this option can be done through this button over here. Once you click on bulk invoices, you will be redirected to this screen over here. Through this screen, you will be able to download the bulk invoice template, and as you can see, we have 4 types of template, and fill out this template and then upload it again using a choose file option over here and upload. And once you upload it, you will be creating multiple invoices in one time. This is a very powerful feature that will allow you to create as many invoices as you want while only choosing it or fulfilling its detail inside a CSV file. Now, let's take an idea or let's learn about the difference between the templates over here. Before we do that, we would like to let you know that we have a fully dedicated article that can guide you through how to handle the bulk invoices with the name How to Handle Bulk Invoices, that you can find that inside PayTabs support portal. This will allow you to guide you through handling your bulk invoices. Now, once you click on any of this template, from its name, we have the standard template, we have an extended template with more details, we have an extended template with text invoices, we have an extended with the text invoices and its extended details. Now, I'm going to show you the 4 templates of these. Simply, if you want to download any of them, just click on this link. I have already downloaded so I can show it to you. I'm going to start with the first one, which is the standard bulk invoice. Let's navigate to it. Here comes the standard bulk invoice. Yes, this is the bulk. This is the standard one. As you can see, it will only contain the minimum required details. You can simply just fulfill these details. Be aware that the details that contain an asterisk next to it, like for example the currency here contain an asterisk next to it, this means that it's mandatory to fulfill this. If you created an invoice and left or didn't fill any one of the mandatory, this file will fade and it will not be uploaded to your dashboard. Now, as you can see here we have the regular or just the required details, the currency, the language, the customer name, the customer email, and you can see that the customer phone is developed in two ways: the phone, the country code, and the phone itself. Finally will be the reference number for the invoice, the description, the quantity, the unit price, and the discount. So this is just a basic way of creating an invoice, simply by fulfilling each of these details here and then saving your CSV file and uploading it to your merchant dashboard, and all the invoice over here in this table will be created inside your merchant dashboard. Now I'm just going to give you an idea about the next file, which will be the extended bulk invoice. I believe this is it, the extended bulk invoices one. Here come the extended bulk invoices one. As you can see, it have some extra details like the extra charges option, the extra discount, the activation date, and the expiration date. So if you want to just create a group of invoices in a simple way, you can choose the standard template. If you want to extend your invoice and create it with more details like the extra charges, extra discount, activation date, and expiration date, you can use this one. And we have another 2 templates including the taxes option. So we have the normal taxes invoice. I believe this is it. No, that's not it. Yes, here is the extended bulk invoices taxes, the extended bulk taxes invoices. Here it will contain product tax, and you can see it will contain customer tax reference. It's an optional, but the tax here is mandatory. And this is just the two optional ways, or the two optional parameter inside this extended. Finally, we have here the extended for taxes, and the extended over here, the extended option for taxes. I'm going to navigate to it. That's it. And you can see this will contain mostly all the details to create, as like you can see here, we have extra discount, extra charge. It has multiple details that you can see here. It has customer country, it has customer city. This is simply contain all the details that you can use to do a fully taxes invoice. Now, we have learned about all the details. Before we move, we want to remind you that we have that any template that, or any field in the template that contain an asterisk, this means that this template is, or this field is mandatory to fill. Be sure to fill it. Once you filled and you want to test this out, simply you are going to navigate to your merchant dashboard, choose the file that you just created. I'm going to choose any of these one, for example this one. Just select it, and once it's ready, just click on upload. Once it's uploaded like that, you will see it's being processed. You can check it after it's processed like that. It's still processing. Let's wait for it to be processed. Once it's processed and finalized, you can navigate to your invoices. You will see that all the invoices that you added inside this template is added over here, and it will be created as a new invoices, and you will be able to use it with your customer. Now, this is our invoices panel. This is an idea about the invoices panel. If you want to revert of any of the details mentioned here, be assured that you can find it inside our documentation portal. Now we can move to the next part.